18 years. That's how long I'd known Meredith. 10 of those years as husband and wife. If you'd asked me 2 months ago, I would have told you my marriage was good. Maybe not the fiery kind of love you write songs about, but solid like oak. It had its creaks and groans, sure, but it was still standing. We had our daughter, Emily, who had just turned 5 and was obsessed with dinosaurs and jelly beans. I ran a small but successful HVAC business in Raleigh, North Carolina. Meredith worked part-time at the university library, just enough to keep her social and away from the chaos of full-time parenting. Our life was structured. Wake up. Coffee. Breakfast with Emily. I'd head to my jobs while Meredith took Emily to pre-K or stayed home if it was one of her off days. We had dinner at 6:30, bath at 7:30, and bedtime stories by 8. Then, she and I would collapse on the couch in silence or split off into separate rooms, me in my garage fiddling with tools I didn't really need to fix anything, and her reading some dusty novel on the couch. But lately, I'd noticed something. Nothing loud. Just subtle warping in the wood. Like the creaks were more frequent, the groans deeper. She started going out more, said she was reconnecting with old college friends. She'd come back late, sometimes tipsy, always smelling like a mixture of citrus perfume and cigarette smoke. She never smoked. That perfume wasn't hers. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was just hitting a phase. We were getting older, after all. Maybe she was just trying to feel young again. God knows I had my midlife crisis fantasies, too. I considered buying a Harley once. Instead, I settled for a slightly overpriced drill press. But the worst part was what I felt when she walked back in. Not anger. Not even suspicion. It was absence. She was in the room, but not really. Like someone had hollowed her out and just left the shell to smile and nod through our evenings. And maybe, just maybe, I had started to feel the same. On the night of April 22nd, exactly 17 days before our 10th anniversary, Meredith went out again. Girls' night, she said. Wore a red blouse I hadn't seen in years, one I remembered clearly because it was what she wore on our 3rd date. That night ended with us slow dancing in my apartment kitchen to an old Marvin Gaye record. But now it fit tighter, and not just because time had passed. I kissed her on the cheek before she left. She flinched. Not enough for a stranger to notice. But after 10 years, I felt it like a slap. Don't wait up, she said. I didn't. That night I sat in the living room and stared at the wall, the blank TV screen reflecting back a version of me I didn't recognize anymore. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Or maybe I did. I just didn't want to admit it. And like that, the first quiet crack in the foundation became too loud to ignore. It started with the little things. A receipt for a cafe I'd never heard of, tucked in the laundry pile with Meredith's jeans. A laugh in the next room that stopped too quickly when I walked in. Emily said once, in that innocent way kids do, "Mommy says she wishes you were more exciting." I pretended not to hear it, like how you ignore a creak in the attic at 2 a.m. I asked Meredith who she'd gone out with that night she wore the red blouse. She said Lindsay and Tara, her usual fallback names, the same ones from every girls' night the past 3 months. I used to know Lindsay. I hadn't seen her in over a year. I doubted she'd sprouted a second head and a bar habit in the meantime. Still, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. That's the thing about trust, it's not blind, it's loyal. Too loyal. It sticks around long after the last evidence of faithfulness has packed up and left town. But something started to crack in me when I picked Emily up from pre-K one Friday. She ran into my arms, her little Velcro shoes flapping like wings. "Daddy, I drew you something." She handed me a crumpled paper, a stick figure man, a woman with big yellow hair, and a third figure, round head, dark scribbles for eyes, a big smile. "That's Mommy, that's you, and that's Mr. Ben." I crouched down. "Who's Mr. Ben, sweetheart?" "He gives Mommy hugs when you're at work." My spine turned to ice. Later that night, after Emily went to bed, I asked Meredith directly. "Who's Ben?" She blinked. "Ben? Oh, he's just a barista at the campus cafe." Emily probably saw him say hi. She always exaggerates. "He hugs you?" She laughed. "I mean, he's friendly." That laugh. It didn't sound like Meredith. It sounded like someone trying to remember how to laugh convincingly, like an understudy fumbling a line. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I hadn't questioned before. The time she said her phone died, but the battery showed 78% when she handed it to me. The missed calls. The night she came home smiling at nothing. I didn't have proof. But I didn't need a smoking gun. Just a long enough silence. The next day, while she was at work, I pulled out the GPS tracker from my truck toolbox, the one I used on company vans for accountability. I installed it under her car bumper. Took me less than a minute. It felt dirty. Felt wrong. Felt necessary. Funny thing about being in HVAC, you get good at hiding the things people don't want to see. Ducts. Wiring. Heat pumps. Affairs. The next few days, I checked the location history like it was the weather forecast. She said she was going to yoga? Tracker showed her across town near a steakhouse. Said she was with Lindsay? Tracker had her parked near a hotel on the edge of Durham. I didn't say anything yet. I couldn't. It's like watching termites crawl out of your floorboards. You don't want to believe they've eaten through everything until the roof caves in. But it was coming. I could feel it. And somewhere between my gut twisting itself into a sailor's knot and my little girl drawing pictures of Mr. Ben, I realized I wasn't even angry yet. Not truly. I was grieving. Because when you love someone that long, betrayal doesn't arrive with fireworks. It seeps in slow. It rewrites your memories. Makes you wonder if any of it was ever real. And somewhere, beneath all that suspicion, I still hoped I was wrong. I prayed to be wrong. God help me, I wanted to be wrong more than I wanted to breathe. The GPS history became my new addiction. Every night, while Meredith was brushing her teeth or reading in bed, I'd sneak a glance at my phone and follow the blinking blue dot. I told myself I was protecting my family, that I needed to know where she was for Emily's sake, for my sake, but that was a lie. I was chasing ghosts, hoping they'd vanish before I caught them. Then came the Tuesday night detour. Meredith told me she had a late shift at the university library. I nodded, pretending to be engrossed in a maintenance invoice. Once she left, I watched the tracker. For 30 minutes, it stayed put, campus address, check. But then, it moved. East. Across the bridge. And stopped at a place called the Glenwood Inn. A hotel. I waited 5 minutes. 10. 20. Then I got in my truck. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't there to confront her or barge into a hotel lobby like a soap opera husband. I parked across the street, turned off the engine, and stared at that red neon sign blinking in the drizzle like some kind of cosmic warning. And in that moment, I felt something snap. Not loud. Not violent. It was quiet, almost polite, like a rope slipping free from a nail. So I sat. I watched. And I waited. An hour later, Meredith came out. Alone. Hair tied back, coat zipped. She looked casual. Too casual. Not the rushed, flushed look of someone escaping a lover's embrace. She didn't even glance around. Just walked to her car and drove off like nothing had happened. Still, the next day, I checked her call logs. She'd deleted them. Again. And her texts? Wiped clean. Except one. A message buried under the name Amy. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for next week. Same place? Winking face. I didn't recognize the number. It wasn't Amy. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched from inside. And still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I started collecting things. Screenshots. Time stamps. Every lie documented like I was building a case file in my own courtroom. That weekend, we took Emily to the Science Museum. She wore her purple rain boots and skipped between exhibits, dragging me from one dinosaur skeleton to the next. Meredith played the doting mom, laughing at Emily's questions, pointing out meteors. But I couldn't stop looking at her hands. She touched Emily's shoulder. Tucked her hair behind her ear. But she never once reached for mine. And somewhere between the T-Rex jaws and the glow-in-the-dark space room, Emily tugged my hand and whispered, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy smile at you like she does at Mr. Ben?" That's when I walked into the bathroom and threw up. Later that night, I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey, sat in the garage, and just stared at the shelves. Tools lined up like soldiers who couldn't help me. I thought about the first time Meredith and I danced in that tiny kitchen. The way she whispered she wanted 3 kids. The way we lost the second one at 9 weeks and cried on the bathroom floor. I hadn't let myself think about that in years. It hit me then, my life wasn't just cracking. It was being slowly, surgically amputated. And the hands doing the cutting were the ones I used to fall asleep holding. I tried laughing. Really, I did. The kind of dry, gallows humor that keeps you sane. Guess HVAC prepared me for this, I muttered to the empty room. Spent 20 years sealing up drafts and checking ducts, and I still missed the cold creeping in through my own damn house. It wasn't funny. But it was true. I raised my glass and toasted the silence. To perfect lies, and the fools who believe them. I drank. And somewhere between the ice melting and the wind brushing past the garage door, I decided something. The next time that blue dot moved, I'd follow it. The following Thursday, I planned to follow the tracker again. I was ready. The tank was full, the alibi was set, and I even cleaned my windshield like I was prepping for reconnaissance in a war movie. But then the doorbell rang. And everything changed. Surprise, came the voice of death in the form of one person, my mother-in-law, Gail. Gail was the kind of woman who carried her disapproval like a purse, heavy, ever-present, and just slightly open so you could see what she was judging you for. She lived in Wilmington and only visited when tragedy struck or when she smelled one coming. I thought it was time for a visit, she said, stepping into the house before I could offer a greeting, her suitcase trailing behind her like a reluctant child. Meredith looked equally shocked and, for a brief second, almost horrified. Then she plastered on that perfect host smile. "Mom! You didn't tell us you were coming." "Of course not," Gail sniffed. "You two need a little spontaneity in your marriage. It keeps the spark alive. Or so Dr. Phil says." She paused and looked me dead in the eye. "You still doing those duct thingies, Carl?" I swallowed. "It's HVAC, Gail. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning." "Right," she said, patting my shoulder like I was a plumber with dreams too big for my wrench. Gail came with questions. Endless ones. "Why don't you two go on more date nights? Has Emily started piano yet? Does Meredith seem tired to you lately? Why don't you have curtains in the garage?" That last one almost broke me. Because it's a garage, Gail. The oil stains don't need mood lighting. But here's the kicker, for all her nosiness, Gail was oddly helpful. She cooked. She cleaned. She played with Emily while Meredith went on another late shift. And because she was around, Meredith started staying home more, at least visibly. That made my late-night observations stall out. No hotel trips. No tracker detours. Just a blinking dot in our driveway. I should have felt relief. Instead, I started to miss the chaos. At least then, I was chasing something. Now, I was just listening to Gail describe every episode of her favorite true crime podcast over lukewarm coffee. And then she chopped her husband's head off and fed it to their cat. Can you believe that? "You wouldn't do anything that drastic, would you, Carl?" she said with a wink. I chuckled dryly. Not unless the cat was hungry. We both laughed. Mine had teeth in it. Saturday night, Meredith sat beside me on the couch, legs curled, flipping through a magazine. Gail had taken Emily for an overnight sleepover at her cousin's house, which was the first time our home had felt quiet in weeks. "You've been quiet lately," Meredith said, not looking at me. "So have you." That silence hung heavy, like fog between two ships that used to know each other's horns. Then she reached out and placed a hand on mine. For a moment, I thought maybe we were going to talk. That she was about to confess, or explain, or apologize for the red blouse or the deleted texts or for hugging baristas with more frequency than her husband. But no. "You should be nicer to my mom," she said. "She's trying." I nodded. "I'll get right on that. Right after I sew curtains in the garage." She laughed. Real. Quick. And then she leaned back into the couch and didn't say another word. Gail left the following Monday. Meredith kissed her goodbye and waved until her car turned the corner. Then she went inside, changed clothes, and left again. The tracker lit up. Back to the Glenwood Inn. Only this time, I followed. And I brought a camera. The Glenwood Inn was the kind of place where the parking lot was always half full and the front desk clerk didn't look up when you walked in. It wasn't fancy, but it had privacy. The kind of privacy you could rent by the hour and forget about by morning. I parked across the street, engine off, camera in my lap. My hands were steady, but my brain felt like a hornet's nest. I was prepared, well, as prepared as a guy can be to see the woman he once slow danced with in a kitchen kissing someone else in a rental room. And then I saw her. Meredith. Red coat. Hair down. Laughing. Laughing. Beside her was a man I didn't recognize, mid-30s, button-up shirt, smug expression like he'd just gotten away with something. Maybe he had. They walked inside together like it was routine. Like this was their Tuesday. I clicked a photo. Another one. Zoomed in. The camera made it feel less real, like I was watching someone else's life dissolve through a lens. Then I drove home. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. No Hollywood speech. I sat in the kitchen, stared at the tiles Meredith picked out herself, Spanish blue, and tried to remember when we stopped dancing. She came home 2 hours later, smelling like that citrus perfume and something else, something sour and cheap. "Hey," she said casually, as if she hadn't just shattered the rest of my illusions. "How was work?" I asked. She hesitated. That half-second was enough to confirm everything. "Busy," she lied. That was it. That was the match. I stood, slow. Pulled out my phone. Opened the photos. I handed it to her. She stared. Blinked. Said nothing. "Got anything to say?" I asked. My voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm you hear before a building collapses. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Carl." "No," I snapped. "You don't get to Carl me like this as a misunderstanding about the groceries. That's you. That's a motel. That's not Lindsay from yoga." Her eyes welled up, and I felt nothing. Just a numbness that wrapped around me like a wet wool blanket. It didn't mean anything. I laughed. Loud. Sharp. The kind of laugh you don't recognize as your own. You know what doesn't mean anything? Buying $500 of tools because you think a new cordless drill will somehow patch the hole in your chest. That doesn't mean anything. This meant something. I was lonely, she whispered. So was I. But I didn't start renting hotel rooms with men who make good espresso. We argued. Voices rising, breaking. Emily woke up and cried from her bedroom. Meredith went to calm her while I stood in the kitchen, wondering how many fights like this happen in homes like ours, where love used to live but now just leases space to resentment. Later, after Emily fell asleep again, Meredith and I sat at opposite ends of the couch. She stared at the floor. I stared at the ceiling. "Are you going to leave me?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I said. "I honestly don't know." And I didn't. Because despite it all, my brain still tried to bargain. Maybe it was a phase. Maybe she was just broken, like me. Maybe we could fix it. But then I remembered the way she laughed with him. And how long it had been since she laughed like that with me. That's when I realized something. The betrayal didn't break me because she chose someone else. It broke me because she stopped choosing me. And I let her. Somewhere between baby bottles and credit card bills and being the guy who always showed up, I stopped being someone she wanted to come home to. Doesn't mean what she did was okay. Not even close. But it sure as hell made me look in the mirror and see a man who hadn't checked his reflection in a long, long time. I poured a drink. Sat in the garage. Laughed bitterly to myself. "Well, Carl," I muttered, "you finally caught her. And now you've got nothing but a camera roll full of proof and a heart that feels like duct tape on drywall." The air felt cold. And I realized I hadn't worn a jacket. Typical. The next morning, I made pancakes. Not out of hunger. Out of ritual. I only knew how to cook 3 things and one of them involved a microwave and a warning label. But pancakes were Emily's favorite, and pretending to be normal for 10 minutes felt like a victory. She came downstairs in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, can I have extra syrup today?" "Sweetheart, today you can have the whole bottle," I said. "We're living dangerously." Meredith shuffled in next, hair pulled into a loose bun, face blank but trying hard to smile. I poured her coffee. Not out of love. Out of habit. We sat around the table like a broken compass, pointing in different directions, still pretending we were navigating the same map. Halfway through breakfast, Emily looked up and said, "Mommy, you look sad." Meredith's hand twitched on her fork. "I'm just tired, baby," she said. "Daddy looked tired yesterday," Emily added. "And he swore in the garage." I choked on coffee. Meredith glared. "You swore in front of her?" Technically, she was inside. I was swearing at the power drill. It betrayed me too. She didn't laugh. But Emily did. That pure, belly laugh only kids can muster. I clung to that sound like it was a life raft. After breakfast, Meredith followed me into the laundry room. "I want to talk," she said. "About what? The weather? Or the man you've been sneaking into a 3-star motel?" She winced. "You want me to beg? Is that what you want?" "I want to understand what happened to us," I said. "Because one day you were my wife, and the next, you were someone else." Her face softened, like maybe she wasn't expecting that. "I didn't plan for it," she said. "It just happened. One night turned into 3. 3 into months. And by the time I wanted to stop, it felt easier to keep going than to confess." I nodded slowly. "Yeah. That's kind of how I ended up with the extended warranty on my van." She stared, then snorted. "God, you're infuriating. Only when I'm right. You really think there's a path forward from this?" I leaned against the dryer. "No idea. But I know one thing, if you're staying, I'm not going to be a doormat. We do therapy, you come clean about everything, and for once, we talk like we mean it. No code, no lies, no glossed over PDA smile crap. Just raw honesty. Think you can handle that?" She was quiet for a long time. "Do I have to stop using your Netflix profile?" "That's non-negotiable." And we both laughed. For real, this time. It didn't fix anything. But for 30 seconds, it was something. A flicker. Later that day, I told my best friend Gabe everything. We met at Manny's Diner, the kind of place that hadn't updated its wallpaper since the Reagan administration. "Damn," Gabe said, sipping his sweet tea. "You actually caught her in the act?" "I didn't just catch her. I photographed her like I was working for National Geographic. The cheater in her natural habitat." He whistled. "What now?" I think we're gonna try counseling." Gabe blinked. "Seriously? After all that?" "I know. Feels like trying to rebuild a house with scorched timber and glue sticks. But Emily deserves at least one more swing at this." "You really think she can change?" I stirred my coffee. "I don't know. But maybe I can. Maybe I already did." He nodded, then squinted. "You're not gonna do anything dramatic, are you?" "Oh, no," I said. "I'm just going to take some time. Reclaim some space. Maybe sign up for kickboxing. Or pottery. Or revenge salsa dancing." Gabe raised an eyebrow. "Don't knock it," I said. "Revenge salsa has potential." We laughed. Then I said what I hadn't said out loud yet. I'm not trying to win her back. I'm trying to win myself back. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, something in me had finally stopped shaking. Next week, we'd meet the marriage counselor. I didn't know if it would work. But I knew one thing. There'd be fireworks. One way or another. The first therapy session was exactly what I expected, awkward, tense, and full of words like communication style and emotional ownership. The therapist, Dana, was a petite woman with a voice so calm it felt illegal. She listened more than she talked, and when she did speak, it was the kind of thing that made you feel like the dumbest, most complex species on the planet. Meredith and I sat like statues, nodding and sipping lukewarm water from paper cups. Then Dana asked, "Carl, when was the last time you felt happy in this marriage?" I looked at the ceiling. Thought. Then I said, "There was a night a few years ago. Emily had the flu. She'd been vomiting for 2 days. Meredith and I were sleep-deprived, covered in Pedialyte and regret. And somewhere around 3 a.m., she said something about how she missed her old jeans, and I replied, 'Your jeans miss you too.' They sent a ransom note." Meredith chuckled. So did Dana. "It wasn't a great night," I added. "But it was real. We were in it together. Messy, tired, gross, and still making each other laugh." Dana smiled. "That's a good memory. Hold on to it." But that night, something else happened. Something that blindsided me. We were putting Emily to bed, still high from the minor win of surviving therapy without killing each other, when she said, "Daddy, can I show you something?" "Sure, baby." She handed me a piece of paper. A crayon drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One had curly hair like Meredith. One had a beard. One, smaller, had a bow. And off to the side, another figure. A man. Big. Smiling. "Who's that?" I asked gently. Emily hesitated. "That's the man Mommy said might be your new friend if you don't stay." Silence. Meredith turned pale. "Emily, sweetheart," she stammered, "I didn't mean it that way." I stared at the drawing. I felt the ground beneath me tilt just slightly. "Did you tell her I was leaving?" I asked, without looking up. I mentioned we were having a hard time. That things might change. I didn't know she'd draw. "You planted fear," I said. "In our daughter. To get a head start on sympathy." "No, Carl, that's not what I held up the paper. "You introduced her to backup." Meredith's voice broke. "I just didn't want her to be blindsided." "Like I was?" I said, calmly. Too calmly. The moment hung heavy. Emily hugged my leg. "I don't want anyone else to be my daddy," she whispered. And that cracked something wide open. That night, after she fell asleep, I stepped outside into the backyard. Lit a fire in our old rusted fire pit. Sat alone and stared into the flames like I was trying to burn the confusion out of me. And then, I made a decision. The next morning, I booked a cabin up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Just for me. 3 nights. No phones. No distractions. Just space. I told Meredith I needed to think. To breathe. And to her credit, she nodded. No tears. No accusations. Just nodded. "I get it," she said. "But will you come back?" I didn't answer. I kissed Emily goodbye, told her Daddy had to go fix some things. She gave me her stuffed dinosaur. For company, she said. So I drove. Alone. With a plush T-Rex in the passenger seat and the voice of my daughter echoing in my head. And here's the thing, that cabin wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something I hadn't done in years. Finding out who I was without her. Or maybe, who I'd always been. Next stop, Blue Ridge. And then? We'd see what was worth returning to. The cabin sat on a ridge like it had seen too much and wasn't telling a soul. Wind rattled the pines. The porch creaked when I stepped out with coffee in hand and dinosaur in tow. His name was Mr. Chompers. My emotional support plushie. Thanks, Emily. By day 3, I hadn't shaved, I'd eaten nothing but instant noodles and trail mix, and I'd written 3 versions of a letter to Meredith, each one progressively more honest and 40% more profane. Then, on a clear cold Thursday, Meredith showed up. I heard the tires crunch gravel. She got out of the car like she was walking into a hostage negotiation. Carl. Meredith. Nice beard. It's called survival fur. Emily cried herself to sleep last night. I set my coffee down slow, real slow. Like every movement mattered. Like I was in a Tarantino scene and someone might flip a table. Don't weaponize the child. We're fresh out of ammo and it's not fair to reload with guilt. She crossed her arms. I didn't come here to fight. Then why are you dressed like you're about to file a motion for full custody? She laughed. Genuinely. God, I forgot how annoying you are when you're right. I stepped aside. You want to come in or just yell through the trees? We sat at the tiny kitchen table. She looked around. Did you decorate this place with regret and camping brochures? Budget didn't allow for therapy chic. Then, silence. The kind that waits. Hangs. Finally, I broke it. You came all this way. What for? She slid a piece of paper across the table. Emily drew this yesterday. It was another drawing. This time, for figures holding hands. Meredith. Emily. Me. And Mr. Chompers. She said we all deserve a do-over. That one hit different. I'm not promising anything, I said. I'm not asking for everything, she replied. Just start over. Somewhere. Even if it's as friends. I leaned back in my chair. Stared at the wood beams. At the way sunlight cut across the table. Thought about how starting over isn't sexy, it's brutal. You don't get fireworks. You get fragments. Sweeping up glass with your bare hands. But sometimes, just sometimes, the wound tells you where you went wrong. Okay, I said. But we do this on my terms. Honesty. Hard talks. And no more mystery men with strong jawlines and cappuccino foam on their shirts. She smiled. Deal. And I pick the next therapist. Why? Because I want one who cusses when they're mad. Dana made me feel like I was disappointing a Buddhist aunt. We both laughed. The next morning, we packed up and drove back in silence. Not awkward, more like respectful. Like neither of us wanted to break the spell. Back home, Emily ran out onto the porch like a one-girl welcoming committee. Daddy! I scooped her up and nearly dropped Mr. Chompers in the flower bed. Did you fix the things? She asked. I'm working on it, I said. But it's a team project now. She held up her pinky. I linked it with mine. And that's when I realized the story wasn't ending. It was changing genres. From tragedy to redemption. Next part? Let's see what that road looks like. There's a moment in every man's life where he looks in the mirror and realizes he's not who he thought he'd be. That moment hit me on a Tuesday morning, right after burning a pan of eggs and stepping on a Lego. The Lego hurt less. You know the quote, rock bottom isn't a foundation, it's a mirror. Yeah. That one stuck. Because when you hit bottom, what you see isn't just the world failing you, it's every inch of yourself that helped the fall. Meredith and I gave it our best shot. For 2 weeks, we did therapy, parent-teacher meetings, even attempted date night at a fusion sushi place that serves steak on fire. Literal fire. I watched a flaming filet mignon while Meredith asked, "Do you think you can ever trust me again?" I wanted to say yes. I really did. But I couldn't. And that's when I knew. It wasn't about the affair. Not anymore. It was about all the invisible cuts we'd given each other over the years. Little things. Missed jokes. Empty apologies. Silence where there should have been shouting. I'd stopped fighting for her. And she? She'd stopped expecting me to. Here's the truth I hadn't admitted until then. I wasn't the victim I wanted to be. I worked too much. I avoided hard talks. I let myself drift. I blamed her for the distance I helped create. That doesn't excuse her betrayal, but it sure as hell explains why I didn't see it coming. I used to think if you did all the right things, held doors, paid bills, rocked your kid to sleep, you were safe from heartbreak. Turns out, love isn't a checklist. It's a battlefield you walk every day without armor. And some days, the person next to you drops their shield first. I confessed to Meredith one night, in the car outside Target of all places. I haven't been fair to you, I said. Not in the ways people write country songs about. But in the quiet ways. The ways you can't frame or quote. I stopped showing up emotionally. I buried myself in work and came home thinking loyalty was love. It wasn't. She blinked. Looked away. You want out? I think I already stepped out, I said. I just didn't notice until you ran. We sat in silence. Finally, she whispered, what do we do now? I gave the most honest answer I had. I don't know. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she asked me to, but because it felt like the only place left that was mine. Emily came down around midnight, curled up beside me, dinosaur in hand. We didn't talk. We just stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the fridge and the sound of our breaths finding rhythm. Funny thing. That was the calmest I'd felt in weeks. There's a quote I read once, sometimes the strongest souls are the ones who've cried in silence, fought battles in the dark, and still carry smiles that betray none of it. Maybe that was me. Maybe that was Meredith too. But something had cracked, and it couldn't be patched with pinky promises or therapy schedules. The ending was coming. Not in flames. Not in rage. But in truth. And truth, when it finally walks in the door, doesn't knock. It just stands there, waiting for you to meet its eyes. One chapter left. And it's going to be the one that defines all the rest. I left on a Tuesday. No fireworks. No slammed doors. Just a suitcase, a nod, and the quiet understanding that staying would have meant slowly disappearing. Meredith cried when I told her. I didn't. I think I'd already done enough crying in invisible ways, driving to work, brushing my daughter's hair, trying to sleep through the sounds of a house that no longer felt like mine. I moved into a rental outside of town. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom. Beige walls. A kitchen that needed love. It felt like a clean page. Not a glamorous one. But blank. And blank was enough. Emily visits every weekend. We have pancake Sundays. She brings Mr. Chompers and insists he sits at the table. She draws new pictures of us. Just me and her, under the same big yellow sun. Sometimes I find myself staring at those crayon suns a little too long. There's a quote I keep taped to the fridge now, you cannot heal in the same place you were broken. It reminds me why I left. Not for revenge. Not to punish. But to breathe. To become someone worth coming home to first, for myself. And Meredith? She's finding her path too. She texts updates. Sends videos of Emily at school. Sometimes she signs them with a smiley face. We're not friends. Not enemies. Maybe just two people who knew how to build a life, but forgot how to live inside it. What I've learned. Love isn't owed. Trust isn't permanent. And loyalty, without honesty, is just quiet resignation. But here's the beautiful part. You survive. You rebuild. You stop measuring yourself by the damage done to you and start sculpting something new from the pieces left behind. If you're reading this, maybe you're standing at the edge too. Wondering if it's time to jump, or fight, or forgive. Maybe your heart is heavier than you know how to carry. So let me say this. Don't lose yourself trying to keep what's already gone. Don't bury your voice just to keep the peace. And above all, don't forget that sometimes, the bravest thing you'll ever do is walk away, not in anger, but in peace. Because peace? That's what we're really after, isn't it? So here's to you. To clean slates. To quiet strength. To messy, beautiful, honest beginnings. You deserve them. We all do. Carl.